News editors and media owners across the country were in Abuja for the 17th All Nigeria Editors Conference, ANEC, with the theme, Media in Times of Crisis, Resolving Conflict, Achieving Consensus. Malam Ali, the Deputy President of the Nigerian Guild of Editors and the Chairman of the Planning Committee of the just concluded ANEC Conference, is now joining us to discuss this, especially on how journalists on the field should report in the face of increasing danger with law enforcement authorities, as well as bandits and terrorists. You're welcome to the studio, Malam Ali.
Good to be here, Steve.
Good morning.
Yeah.
All right.
Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. I mean, let me congratulate you on the success of the 17th ANEC, All Nigerian Editors Conference. I mean, wow, it is the 17th edition. But then I like the fact that at this time, in Nigeria, where everybody is talking security, Nigerian editors also deemed it fit to choose a theme that is on that. So I'm wondering, what's the point? Why did you arrive at this particular theme and topic for the 17th ANEC? And what's your personal view as far as, if you look at the theme, media in times of crisis, resolving conflict, and achieving consensus. Consensus with who, Ali?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Well, once again, good morning, viewers. Thank you very much for having me in your show. Like you pointed out, the role of the media over time.
Yes.
In charting the way forward, and also being a repository of information and data even. And we in the Executive Council of the Nigerian Guild, we thought that we should have a theme that will reflect contemporary times.
That's right.
And more than anything else, in Nigeria today, and on the continent of Africa, and indeed the entire world, the issue is that of insecurity. Not security, insecurity.
Insecurity.
And we thought that we shouldn't shirk this traditional responsibility of helping to chart the way forward, the media. And we think the media plays an important role in resolving crisis or aggravating crisis. As members of the fourth estate of the Rim, like you know, you were once there yourself, you were once deputy president of the guild, and we said, well, let's not shirk this responsibility. Last year, the theme of last year had to reflect that the moment. It has to do with the COVID-19, the Nigerian editor and the COVID-19 era. And we said, well, look, let's look at this raging issue of insecurity nationwide and how the media perhaps can help in resolving this crisis. But if you look at the theme, it's quite ambitious. The media in moments of crisis, resolving, attaining consensus, resolving crisis, having a consensus. Even that someone will say that is quite ambitious. How would you arrive at a consensus, especially in a very pluralistic society and a country that up to now there are ongoing conversation, how to resolve lingering issues that have over the years bring forward some people are even questioning the integrity of the nation, whether the nation can remain as one. But we thought the media, like I said, especially gatekeepers, editors. And the Nigerian Guild of Editors is the umbrella body of all Nigerian editors, not just line editors, but those who decide what go into the public space, in either on air or the print, and lately even online media. And we thought that perhaps if the media plays a more
Inclusive role?
Well, inclusive role and then reflecting all sides. Yeah. More often than not, sometimes the editor is more involved. There are instances where stories, they have especially those who try to do interpretative journalism. But you see, when you are reporting conflict and crisis, you have to be very factual. Hardly you get room to maneuver to give your own interpretation of event. You just do straight line reporting. Steve, yes.
Correct, Ali, because yes. I mean, this is coming at a time that the old country, if you like, for want of a better word, celebrated the first anniversary of NSAS, and we know what happened. As a matter of fact, my co-anchor, Adefemi, who I'm sure will ask you a question now, also faced, in line of duty, was also, if you like, also brutalized, by the police in line of duty while on live camera. I mean, so I can imagine why the Nigerian editors would choose such a subject. For you and for the people who work with you and other journalists that you see, how do you think that journalists should manage these, in these challenging times? You're going out there to report, even while you're on live TV, and then police that the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State described as maybe overzealous, maybe not well-trained, maybe indisciplined, etc. How do you navigate that delicate curve?
That's very crucial question. How do you navigate? Especially, it's like walking through a minefield. A lot of times, you're going into minefield, and often the times blindfolded. Let me just slightly deviate and give you an anecdote to that. 3 people went on expedition, and then they came across a lion literally rested on his oars. And then the leader of the expedition team said, look, don't panic. You remember in the book we read about lions when they're in a state like this, that don't panic, just find a way of navigating and go through, he won't hurt you. Then 2 of the other members of the team, they say, well, I have read the book, you have read the book, he has read the book, but has the lion read the book? That is the thing. Reporters, journalists, when you are covering conflict, and then the authorities, invariably you come in conflict with, especially those who are charged with the constitutional rule of keeping law and order. But if you look at the history of the evolution of the Nigerian police, more than anybody else, they are there for regime protection, not for protecting the ordinary citizen. And reporters doing their constitutional role, they are seen, they should be protected actually from even the security forces. But incidentally, it's just like the question of whether the lion has read the book. Because up to this moment, I think, like the police commissioner said, I think there's a lot of overzealousness on the part of, but then they are not overzealous for being overzealous sake. I think those at the very top, this culture of impunity, when people have not been punished for violating, especially constitutional provision, because the right, is guaranteed for the media, constitutionally guaranteed to exercise their role.
I think that's an aspect that will interest my colleague, Femi. Adefemi, you would like to ask Ali a question? I'm sure you... Absolutely. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. Just on the topic that you were just discussing.
Thank you for having us. Yes.
No worries at all. I wanted to ask you about what you think should be the best way to approach going into hostile situations. I think one experience that we as a team learned this week is that, the press aren't always going to be off limits. And so in situations like that, how do you think that journalists in the field should perceive threats and make sure that, at the end of the day, they do get back to base safely and as safely as possible while still doing their job?
Well, I always say the thing is, first, avoid as much as possible confrontation with the authorities, especially if you are in the business of news hunt. Being a news hunt, you are number one target. Even if, no matter how calm you are, you'll be subjected to hostility. So first thing in my own rule book is, as much as possible, avoid confrontation with security operatives as much as possible, and use the best of language to communicate, to explain why you are there. And as soon as you made them to realize that perhaps you are actually partners, you are actually even protecting their own right to discharge their constitutional role, being law enforcement agent. Communication is key here, but being confrontational, because like I gave the anecdote with the lion. You've read the book, but has the lion read the book? That is the thing. The ordinary police officer or man you see, or men on the street, they are not perhaps, they are just there to charge and perhaps to, they are more browns, so to say, than brains actually. So you try as much as possible to avoid confrontation. That is one. Two, to communicate, look, why you are there is as much as a duty for every one of them to keep the law, and you are also guaranteed by the Constitution to inform the rest of the citizenry. Deploy as much as possible diplomatic language. And then I think at the end of the day, everybody would have a meeting ground, and then perhaps you meet them halfway, and then they meet you halfway. Otherwise, I've seen instances where our colleagues in the field, especially, been very confrontational, and at the end of the day, you know, they say the pen is mightier than the sword. But more often than not, before the pen gets that mighty, the sword might have done some damage to the individual pen pusher, so to say. So really avoid confrontation. That's my own, yes, my understanding.
But in all this, would you think that the Nigerian media is endangered? We're confronting bandits and terrorists in different parts of the country. And then you are also dealing with the brutality of the police, a good chunk of the police force that has not changed, for the better. So my question to you, one, do you think that Nigerian journalists or the media is endangered? And two, how should media organizations and media owners kit and, retool their foot soldiers when they are being sent out, to bring in the stories?
First, I think, like you said, you identify all the dangers now the media face,
yes.
Not just in the country, but worldwide, especially in conflict zones. The media practitioners are first line of danger. First, I think especially defense correspondents and reporters, they need to be given survival training, how to survive out there in the field. That is one. Two, also, they need to be given the right skills to also get what is really the key, the most important stories there. Because when you go there, it's a whole gamut. What you know, of course, sometimes stories, we may have the format, but then sometimes also stories are perhaps informed by the understanding of each reporter. But then there is no consensus really. What may interest one reporter, but then there is a general format, how you do that. And then beyond even conflict zones, the media industry is being assailed by a totally different threat. That is poor welfare and remuneration. That is in itself has compromised the integrity of the reportage. Sometimes people, especially news hound out there, are susceptible to all kinds of influences. And then also the issue of, understanding the subject, because we've had reporters sometimes, when they're just about to, haven't gotten a feel of their field, then suddenly they are reassigned to a different field, creating a vacuum. And I think it's important that newspapers, I've seen a lot of media houses encouraging specialization. We have instances where reporters haven't remained on a particular beat. They speak and understand the language of the beat. They have contact. I think we should encourage media houses that have been doing that, they shouldn't just, on a matter of whims and caprices of certain media managers, are removed from beats, after they've developed some specialization. And I think with that, perhaps this survival kit, and like you say, retooling them. Yes. First, training, yes. Survival training itself, beyond the how to get the news behind the news. It's important that, because it's the man who survives that will tell the story. The reporter that survives will be the one that will tell the story. Every reporter.
Absolutely.
So this is my own understanding, and I think my own recommendation how to go about it.
Right. Absolutely.
Femi, have you got any last question?
I do, but sadly it is time for us to move on to our next segment. So we have to thank our guest Aliu for joining us on the morning show.